Hi, and welcome to our third episode of the podcast Keen Minds, based on NBC's The Blacklist, in which we discuss the show, especially in relationships to the Keens. We both love the Keens individually and together. I am not a shipper. I am a theorist. I love theory and canon and symbols and love to try to compose the puzzle of the Blacklist. And Jen?
And I'm Jen, aka Takata Cycle, on all the social media there. And I am a shipper. I am a Keen Squared shipper, but I do try to take a pretty balanced approach. Love all characters and love to see how they interact together and with the Keens and all of the above.
Yeah, I do too. I love every single character of the Blacklist. I am partial to the bad guys, to Red and Tom, but I love them all, absolutely all of them. And this episode was ranks among my 10 favorite ones.
It's definitely in the top 3, I'd say, for me.
Oh, wow.
It was good. Ask me at the end of the season if it still ranks that high, because it's going to be an exciting season.
I think
But it was excellent. It was everything that I was hoping for, which I get my hopes up pretty high, but when they deliver on them, you can't help it. So
yeah, it had everything. It had action, chases, a train that it wasn't there. It was put in post production. I am so impressed with the production team of the Blacklist. That was absurdly good.
Yes, it was just, the entire episode was excellent. And so today, for the Miles McGrath episode, we'll be going over the task force and Red's reaction to the Keens, as we usually do. And we'll be covering a couple different parallels there of the parallel between Katarina and Red's relationship that we found out today about the affair and
the relationship between Liz and Tom, and touching on how those parallels may have influenced the relationship of Red with both of them.
Yes, and also looking a little bit at the Team Keen moment, which is one of my favorites.
That was beautiful. It reminded me so much of Red and Katarina. And I think we should also talk maybe a couple of the symbols and themes that we have seen emerging in this fourth season and continuing from the other ones. So without much ado, let's delve in.
All right, let's jump straight in, and we want to start with Wrestler. And he had some fun interactions this episode. He actually gave Tom a compliment. Felt like I wanted to reach down the ground and see if hell had frozen over.
I actually had been very, very pleased with the way the direction wrestlers have been taken, because I feel that finally, between the rubber banding theory and and Liz and retrieving Liz from the dark side, I think that I've actually figured it out. And I'm happy about that.
Oh, Wrestler was excellent in this episode. I mean, he's had a great season so far. I feel like this season they've taken him in a much more, I mean, they had him obviously in a very purposeful direction in 3A, but he seemed to kind of fall back to the background just a little bit in 3B. And they really seem to be taking him in a very purposeful direction for 4A. And I'm really excited about that, and to see he and Liz working together again. And heaven knows I love my Tesla moments. I was thrilled to see those boys working together.
Well, I have a different view of Wrestler. I know that a lot of people feel that Wrestler was put in the back burner in 3B. And yes, he was, because the focus shifted so much to the intensely personal with Liz's pregnancy. But I felt that he was being just truthful, because in his mind he just lost Liz to the dark side. She became Red and Tom was Red. So he was angry, and he was trying to save her from becoming Red, which I think for Wrestler is even worse than death.
And it's interesting because I think that the relationship issues that they had in 3B, where it was a little cooler between them rather than the friendship that they usually have, I think we're starting to see that. I mean, certainly with Samar, but even with Aram a little bit. So it's an interesting idea that Ressler's the one that, and I think you've mentioned it before, that really Ressler, when he saw Liz and Tom take that action to get away from Red, that was where it clicked for him.
Yes, he was not, because the thing, in my view, what hurt Ressler the most about Liz dying in her fake death was that for him it was about, she died and she became a bad person before she died because she became like Red, and I think that his pain was not just losing Liz, she lost her while she was in the dark. And I think that when he realized that, it just for him, it was a very interesting reaction. I was expecting it, and I was so pleased when it happened, because that validated, basically, I got it. You know, it's a very aha moment for me that he actually had that reaction, and I've been loving his interactions, both with Red, with Liz, with even Samar. You know, this is about doing what we have to do.
I loved that moment at the beginning that it, you know, the first scene in the post office was the Keens following behind him. And it almost reminded me as if he were still in Cooper's position. He's the one running point with them right now. Cooper wasn't having anything to do with them. And it didn't even seem like anybody was in quite yet, that maybe they showed up there at the break of dawn. And Ressler was the only one from the team in so far. And I loved his reaction of, you know, they're trying to poke through everything. And he's going, no, you guys can't be involved in this. And he's sitting there and rattling off protocol to them. And then finally just kind of looks at them like, I'm not going to be able to stop you anyway. Just go. Do it.
That was a fun moment when he says, like, okay, you know, he looks at Liz, and Liz is giving him that look like, I am going through those things with or without you. So
I dare you to try to stop me.
And I think, in a way, this thing's for Ressler, because I think you mentioned that on the last episode, that how he had lost his own child, and saving Agnes became a way of dealing with that pain, because I don't think that Ressler has quite got over all that. That must have been a tremendously traumatic thing for him.
Well, we've seen that Ressler doesn't deal with deeply emotional issues well. When Audrey died, he got into the painkillers, and he told Samar last season that he was in the office the very next day. That is how he dealt with the pain of losing his fiancée and his child. And so he doesn't handle his emotions very well. And so I really do feel like that he's not in a selfish way at all, but sort of putting himself there and going, I couldn't save my own child, but Liz, I can help you. I can help save yours. And I think that that's really fueling, on a level, fueling his search for Agnes, is helping his friend, his partner, find her little girl when Ressler himself could not save his own child.
Yeah, it's almost like saving a little bit of that child that he never even got to see.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that when he saw what Tom was willing to do, Tom became a different person for him.
He has really, it's interesting. I had kind of an epiphany today. I was thinking about it, doing a rewatch and thinking about it. And I remember, it took me a long while to warm up to Ressler. And it took talking to several friends of mine who are very deep in his head to really find that balance for me. But when I first started with the pilot, I couldn't stand Ressler because, I mean, he was judgmental, he was abrasive, and he did not trust Liz. And I immediately liked Liz. And so I got very defensive with him at the very beginning, and especially when he went after Tom immediately thereafter. And it's interesting because looking at season 1, with the way he approached Liz, something was off. He knew something was off with her. He didn't know exactly what was off with her, but he didn't trust it. And it took a while for him to warm up to her until he did find reasons to trust her. it takes a lot to earn Donald Wrestler's trust. And I
Yeah.
think that once it is earned, you're pretty good.
And I think the same thing with Tom. There was something about Tom he knew wasn't right.
Oh,
He has
absolutely.
very good instincts. And it's funny because there's been like 3 or 4 mentions of wrestlers' instincts as in a negative thing. But I think that when he's good, his instincts tell him what's right and wrong. It may not be. He probably doesn't allow his emotions. His emotions then take over, and that's when he gets in trouble because he can't distinguish what his emotions are saying and what the reality is. And I think that is a very common thing for people to do. There is something that irks you or feel that is wrong, and then you immediately just closed up.
Oh,
It's so the reaction to this new reaction to Liz and Tom to me feels organic, feels natural, and I feel that they've done tremendous work with the character because they've been setting him up from season 1 and that dislike to slowly understanding and appreciating Liz and Tom. And now it's like, okay, I'm on your side. And he has been the one from the most critical of them to the most supportive of them.
oh, and that's what I was going to say a few minutes ago, is that with Liz, it took a while for him to warm up to her, to be able to trust her. And because of that instinct, as you just said, with her, that something was off. And something was. I mean, she was a much darker character than she first portrayed herself as. And obviously there was a lot of stuff that she did not know herself, but it was there. And I think with Tom, he felt that, and then he obviously knew that when everything came out about Tom. And I think you and I have talked about the fact that he didn't have a lot of the information that the audience members have and that obviously Liz has. He walks in, he had no clue that she had him tied to a chair, broke his thumb, and that's what started the fight between them. All he sees is their townhouse destroyed, and his partner has been handcuffed to the banister, and he's ticked because that's his partner, and that's understandable. And so to him, that's what he's carried through. I think that when he had time to actually work side by side with Tom and start to get to know him, not as his partner's husband, and then his partner's ex, and then his partner's lover that he didn't like and did not trust, he started to really get to know Tom Keene as the man he has chosen to be and is struggling to be. And he realized it's kind of like the preview for Redemption, all the things that go into Tom Keene. He realized that Tom is not black and white. He's a killer, but he's also a father. He's a dangerous covert operative, but he's also a loving husband. He has multiple layers.
Yeah,
For someone like Wrestler, he has a little bit of trouble reconciling that, looking at it, but once he actually had the time and was able to see that and take the time with that, he started to see Tom for who he is, and I think that it's made it easier for him to see him as a human being, not an enemy.
And I think it goes the other way too. I think when Tom realized that Wrestler was, looking out for Liz and the commitment to the job, because I think for both men, the commitment to the job and the rules, which the rules are different. For Wrestler is the law, for Tom is his mission. It's they found that common ground. We're going to do our job. I don't quite think that Wrestler was one that thought that what Tom said at the christening was completely off. I think that he got it. He got the whole situation.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. I mean, I started to think last season that maybe we'd get our bromance there, but then when Tom went through and knew everything all the way through, I figured they'd shot that to the ground. But hey, Wrestler gets it, and those two work really well together. So I'm hoping that that'll be a friendship that they work on. I'd love to see Wrestler take an episode over on Redemption and see Diego over there. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, it will be very interesting too as we continue this season and see what happens when Hitchens come back and play, because I don't think that Wrestler quite let that go. So it will be interesting what happens if we get to see another situation where he's about to kill someone, and see who's going to talk him out of it, and keep him for being the Boy Scout.
Or if anybody does. There may become a day that he does it and he is forced to look into those emotions and deal with those emotions and handle the situation. A bit like at the end of season 3 when, while Red did not kill Kirk because Kirk didn't show up, Ressler took a step back. He knew in his own heart, if Kirk had shown up, he would have been dead and Ressler would have done nothing to stop it. And I think that really bothered him on a level. That he was willing to let that go through. It's something that he's going to have to come to terms with and figure out what's right and what's wrong, for him and on his scale of things.
So I think that is that it was a phenomenal episode for Ressa. The whole season has been great. So what about Samar?
Oh, Samar was fantastic. I have a friend on Tumblr that she's so worried that Samar's leaving. And I said, don't worry. I said, this is a writing arc here. I said, you're basically about to get some extra Samar stuff. And I think they're working up to actually get Samar and Aram together. I think that by either mid-season, probably by the end of 3A, I could see Samar and Aram together.
It could be. And also, because I know that we have got quite a bit of her early family background with her that we probably are due for Aram as well. But for Samar, I think that we are about to delve a bit more into Samar's story personal, her real motivation, because we have had her external motivations, the murder of her parents, the death of her fake death of her brother turning to terrorism. We've seen those things and her determination to be a career woman, to think for herself. We got a little bit of that in the Jinn when he tells the other Iranian woman, Nassim, that, she knows how it is, but she took control of her own life. But I think that there is a whole aspect of Samar that we're just getting a little hint of. Betrayal, she took betrayal the deepest. She's the most hurt of them all.
Well, you had mentioned it either last week or the week before. It may have been the first episode we did, where Samar made that decision that she was not going to have a family, she was going to have a career. She had put everything in her personal life aside. We've seen her, there was Levi that she was sort of interested in. We think that she's been interested in Aram on one level. Probably deeper than she's willing to admit. But she's...
And Ressler, because I've seen things with Ressler since the moment they met.
Well, I haven't, but it doesn't mean that they haven't been there.
It was a grudging admiration on Ressler. It was a little interesting in Samar, because she must be like, for somebody coming from the Middle East, it must be, the Boy Scout must be a, rare specimen. And there he is, and he's like, and he's overly, he admires her. He's overtaking with somebody who was able to catch Raymond Reddington, something he hadn't been able to do. So I think that I always saw that there was a little something there. She's a very interesting character.
I wasn't immediately connected to her, but I very much liked where they've gone with Samar. I think a lot of her betrayal comes out of what we were talking about, that she's chosen this life, she's chosen the career, and she doesn't have it. She was willing to give that up for Liz, to protect Liz while she was on the run. She got fired for it. And any relationship she might have had went down the tube when she turned around, slept with who was essentially her boss, and then he fired her the next day for protecting their teammate, whether she was on the team right then or not. And she made the comment in one of the later episodes of season 3. She said, "You didn't just fire me, Ressler. You slept with me and fired me the next morning." It was... She gave up a lot for Liz, And I think she feels very personally betrayed. She made the comment in this last episode. She said, I don't think you care who you hurt. You know, because Liz was trying to explain it to Samara and
Yes.
Aram. She said, I don't think you cared who you hurt. And she was being blatantly honest. And that's how she feels. And thankfully, you don't have to question Samara on how she feels about anything. She'll tell you.
Yes. I think that one thing that both have in common, Wrestler and Samar, is that extreme reaction to betrayal. Different than Aram, different than Cooper. I think betrayal runs deep with them, and it's what connects these two characters. They have both been hurt by betrayal. They've both been impacted by betrayal to the point that is defined her life in a way, in a certain way.
And I think, and this may segue into our Aram section, but I do think that part of the reason that we see Samar drawn to Aram is because he's a bit of a breath of fresh air in her world. I mean, she had the bit with Wrestler, who is very similar to her, and Aram is so very human. He's so very, I mean, his reaction to it, I know that was my reaction, you know, that, you know, you understand why, but you also understand the hurt. And I loved the comment when they're standing there and Liz is trying to thank Samar, and Samar goes, we're not doing this right now. And when they end the communication, she goes, she hates me. And Aram says, you know, yes, for now, she just needs time. We all need time. It was kind of this point of, she's not the only one upset. And Liz turns around and she's so shocked by it. She goes, you hate me too. And he says, I don't hate you, Liz. I hate what you did. And I
But
love
he's
that.
very articulate. He's very, very articulate with his emotions. And that's why he always chooses to do his emotions in the weirdest places and times, which is one of the probably the best thing. They always interrupted me like, Aram, on point, on point. But it's actually, I love Aram in its he is, in a way, he's simple, and in a way, he's very complex.
Well, just speaking on that note, I have to say, Aram flirting by accident is my favorite thing. His attention to the detail of Samar's face when he's talking about the symmetry there. And she's just looking at him like, how often do you stare at my face in these intricate details? And he's, you know, well, one eye is bigger and your chin does this little thing and yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. And she goes, Aram, stop, focus. And, oh, sorry. And we find out at the end of the episode, he's actually been dating someone at least for a long enough period of time that she has a key to his apartment. So who knows when Elise showed up, but they've been dating a while.
Yeah, well, are we already in the Aram
I think we're
section?
in Aram, yes.
Okay, well, I have some interesting things to say about Aram, but first, I think that the Aram has become. I mean, he never was a flat character to begin with. He started from the first few words, and you knew that there was a whole wealth of character development in there. And I think that Amir did a fantastic job with him.
From what I understand, Aram was not originally going to be a regular character. Amir just took it and owned it and made it fantastic. And they just kept calling him back. I heard an interview with him one time where he was talking about it. They just kept calling him back. And then suddenly he was a regular on the show.
Yes, that interview was with the Blacklist Exposed. Yes. I love those guys. And if you guys haven't listened to them, you should go. They're
Absolutely.
fun. They are very, very fun. So, yes, I think that Aram has, this is leaps and bounds. I think that Aram is also a character that he's badass in his own way. He's a techie badass. I mean, this guy can hack into anything. He has his own brand of having done illegal things. He was a hacker. He went to MIT. He was a hacker. If you have read the journal, and that was such a great thing. I think it's still on the website. Go take a look at that journal, because it's priceless.
Well, what was it Dumont said in the backdoor pilot for Redemption? What was it?
Brown takes the glory, but Tech does gets a job done or something
That's
of the
it.
sort.
That was it. And that was so on point. That is a ROM nearly every episode. They could not do what they do, as fantastic as wrestler Liz and Samar are in the field. They could not accomplish what they accomplished without Aram Moshtabai.
Exactly. And not only that, but Aram is a puzzler solver. He's far more than a techie. Aram has the same kind of intelligence as Raymond Reddington does. He is not a schemer, he's not a strategist, but he's able to piece together things and find clues that is to me is fascinating. And he says that he's like he has like a mind crush on Reddington.
I could
And you
see
saw it a
that.
little bit when he saw in this episode, and he says like, "Oh my God, that's brilliant!" It's like with the Miles McGrath that he's basically has an incubator for crime, and he's fascinated by the thing, and he was showing a little bit of that when he found Liz in deadnotalive.org.
Absolutely. Yeah, Aram is just great with that. Do we want to kind of touch on this Elise, this
Oh yes, because
blonde
that one.
jogger?
Yeah, and she has a key to the apartment. And that now, if you remember when Tom was telling me he should say something about it, he said, "Oh no, it's more complicated than you think." I think that's what he meant, that he was already dating someone. Now, you know that I have this among my symbols and signs, and that the plaid shirts mean something.
That the what does?
Plaid
Oh,
shirts,
plaid
plaid
shirts.
garments, yeah, plaid garments, whatever plaid appears in there means something is not as it seems. And I've seen it, and if you look at my post, you would see like every single instance. It's ridiculous. Whenever you see a plaid shirt, question what's going on. It doesn't necessarily mean that the wearer is lying, as much as there is something in there that is not quite as it seems. And Aram was wearing a plaid shirt.
See, I didn't even think about that. That didn't even cross my mind, which is surprising after your post there.
But it is. I mean, I saw it in the rewatch, and I was like, because I have thought not that Aram is super sexy, super attractive. He's quite a catch, but there was something about Elise that didn't quite ring true to me. There was something about her that made me think twice and look deep in there. And then if you go look at when Red meets goes to the phone, and the phone rings, and he tells Kirk something to the extent of, "How did you know I was going to be here? I didn't even know myself until half an hour ago." And Kirk says, "Because I'm the better man." Then I start thinking, how did he know? And I thought, well, what best way is if, let's say, she gives him a watch or something, and he has a microphone, because I am sure that if I were Alexander Kirk, I wanted some look into the task force of Red.
Oh, that would break poor Rom's heart.
It would.
Oh.
And you know that what they're going to do with that, right? That's how they're going to send him straight into Samar.
Well, and that's what I told my friend that we were talking about it. I said, I really do not believe Samara is leaving. I know she just hit the send on the transfer letter. I said, but this is working them together, because I think it was Bokenkamp was talking about one time. He said, yeah, everyone wants them together. That's pretty much fandom wide, but you can't just throw them together, because then what? And so I think this might be the way they're working that. That they're putting this drama here. They're working it out. I mean, I have no idea how long they've got left on this show, but I mean, at some point, you can only stretch something out so far. And with Aram and Samar, they're either going to get together or they aren't. And so, at this point, I can see them working towards that in the fourth season. I think that's great. I mean, they've had 2 seasons to go back and forth. We got our nice little commercial last season with the blind date. I think that they're working towards that. And if Elise is actually a spy using a ROM, oh goodness, that poor man. He won't trust anybody. And it may come to the point where he starts to understand why people like Samar are so distrusting of everyone around them.
And would certainly give him a much better understanding that he already has of Raymond Reddington, and of Liz and Tom doing what they did. Um, I love Aram. I think that he's got such an. I mean, I got such high hopes for this 4 seasons so far. It's ridiculous. I love the Blacklist, but every episode I love it even more.
Oh, this season has just been fantastic. I refuse to listen to the aunties online. I don't understand how anybody could bash this season. It has been phenomenal. Everybody has brought their A game back. The writers, the producers, the team putting it together, and the actors absolutely have all brought their A+ game back to the season, and they've hit the ground running. I'm really impressed with what they've brought forward so far.
Well, I think they've done a fantastic job. I mean, if you do a rewatch, and after each season I do a rewatch, sometimes even in half season I do a whole rewatch, and I tell you, I think that even with the curveball of Megan's pregnancy, that wasn't. I don't think she even wasn't expecting it to happen when it happened. They did a great job. They took a story that was going to happen. They advanced it a little. They tweaked here and there, and I think the resulting storyline was absolutely terrific.
Oh, I agree. I think they did well with it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
I think we can skip Cooper because Cooper really didn't have a lot to do except give a few orders. Oh, they had a conversation with Red.
yeah, a couple of moments, but it didn't really weigh, and it certainly didn't weigh on the Keens. I think Cooper wants to see the Keens right now. I don't think he has that in him to face Liz.
I think they cut that scene.
You do? Okay.
Hopefully, yeah. I think we will get it in the deleted scenes, but I am sure that they had a scene and they had to cut it.
Well, I know specifically that they must have cut one scene because Ryan Eggle did a Q&A on Twitter on, that would have been Thursday for the episode, at, I think it was like 6:30, 7:30, 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. And he posted up something from the marketing team. It was a picture of Tom leaning back against the SUV, and it says, I believe the quote was, "Liz, you and I are a lot of things, but we're not we sure as hell aren't victims," was what the quote was, but that never showed up in the episode. And so it could be that it's from a future episode and they just stuck it with that. They did that back at the Solomon episodes in which
No,
they quoted something, but
that must have come right after Wrestler says technically you're victims, and they go and they find this information, and with that they must have had that conversation, and from there on they go to this office. They're gonna find things that they're not being told.
I agree. I think that's probably where it was cut, and I'm hoping we'll get that with the Blu-rays when they come out. Okay, so we're gonna go down to Red. This will be a big one. Do we want to start with Red and Liz?
Let's start with Red and Liz.
All right. So Red he has caused such a splash in the fandom recently. You have these two sides of people that will defend him to the death, and then you have people like me that are just really upset with him right now. And I understand, even saying how upset I am with him, I do understand that there is a reason behind what they're doing. They're not just trying to throw Red under the bus. They're trying to build doubt. Because you've got Alexander Kirk saying all this. And I was talking to someone today, and I said, you've got Kirk's point of view, you have Red's point of view, and now you have Katarina's point of view with the dossier, with the journal she left behind. You have 3 points of view. Somewhere in that muck is something like the truth, and that's what Liz is searching for right now. Red did not confirm or deny the affair. I personally think that they had an affair after watching Kate May 3 times and just everything that's come out this season. I think they had an affair. I believe Katarina on that. And I find it very interesting that Red has not confirmed that Kirk is her father. That I find very interesting. He's, like we've talked about with Tom and his phrasings about Liz being dead to the task force.
Mm-hmm.
Red has been very careful about this man that believes he's your father. Has been his big phrase that he's used with Liz so far. He never refers to Kurt, while he refers to him as Constantine. And so obviously he believes he's Konstantin Rostov. He has not said to Liz, to anybody else, Elizabeth Kane's father, Masha Rostova's father.
No, he has not. I think that this season, and in this, you know that I go into my wild theories, but this is with even going outside the wild theories. This is some symbols that I've seen, because what I've learned is that Blacklist has narratives at very different levels. It's not just the stories they tell you. It's you gotta go into the symbols. You gotta go into all these little details in the unimportant scenes, in the important scenes, in all scenes, because everywhere they're giving you little clues. And the one thing that I've been starting to see ever since it started in Gregory DeVry. I have to do a rewatch from Gregory DeVry on. It was the first time I was aware of a mirror. They've been doing mirror everywhere. Look at when Liz comes in that room that was supposedly hers. The first thing she sees is herself in the mirror. And you have Kate looking in the mirror. You have mirror stories. Rostov saying one thing and Brett saying the opposite, and Katarina in the middle. And I think that when you gotta take a deeper look. This is not a simple story. You're seeing mirrors everywhere. So think in terms of mirrors, and mirrors reverses things. You see yourself, but you see yourself reversed. What's right is left. And I think that in order to see the story between what Red is telling Liz, what Rostov is telling Liz, you have to look in mirrors. Not everything is as it seems.
I was going to say, you mentioned last week the room of mirrors, the hall of mirrors, in which you're looking at multiple angles,
Yes.
know, and so I think that a lot of it's going to be that, in which you think you're looking at something, you may even think you know how to look at it, but, give it 2 episodes and you're going to find out there were 15 angles coming from that, and I'm not even sure which way's up anymore.
Exactly. And I always said the Blacklist is the house of mirrors, and now we're really getting into it, because that, if you really analyze what Katarina is saying, she never said I had an affair with Red. Look at it. She never does.
I think she does. She says that she was sent to seduce.
No. I'm in love with a man I was sent to seduce. Then she says, I'm in love with him, an American. Raymond wants me to go and go out with him or escape with him. That's not causality. Raymond may not necessarily be the American or the man she fell in love with.
That's fair. I hadn't thought about that.
Katarina gotta speak Red. She does Red speak too. And why would a spy leave a journal with her more intimate things, especially a woman who's later going to run away and commit suicide to keep her daughter safe? But oops, I forgot a journal.
I had wondered that throughout this, because I've seen, comments online that said, they wondered if the journal was a plant and such. I said, I don't want it to be, because I want poor Liz to have something tangible that she can trust in. And
I think it is a clue. It's a journal. It was left for Liz. But is it really saying what it is saying? And then look at that KR. First, it's not Katarina Rostova. That would have been with a P to make it sound Rostova. So it's not Katarina Rostova. And then the R is a reverse R, meaning is it the letter in Cyrillic that sounds like Ya? Or is it an R, a sign for Liz to reverse things?
That's interesting. But I think we've actually gotten off topic a little bit.
Of course we are.
Imagine that. But Red it was really interesting watching him, and this may segue a little bit into Red and Tom as well. It's hard to talk about Red and Liz right now without talking about Red and Tom as well. Because you had Red, the first scene when he calls Liz and calls her, that was a very interesting decision on his part. Very poignant, very purposeful.
In the cemetery.
To meet her at her own grave. And I loved the comment, "Where is Mr. Kaplan?" And I wonder...
You know, she's going to be very pissed.
I hope we see that. I hope that doesn't get cut. I hope we see that in which she finds out for sure that he tried to kill her. And because I mean, you have to think about if she heard that. If I were Liz, my immediate thought would be, he may not come after me, but he hates my husband. You know, what's going to happen the moment he decides Tom made me do this? You know, that would, if I were Liz, that would worry me.
I have found interesting, now that you mentioned that Red has never said that. Because I think Red knows Liz and knows that at the end, Liz will always do what Liz wants to do.
That's fair.
And nobody can convince Liz of anything.
Well, he seemed to think that Kaplan did. He certainly blamed Kate over that. But it was...
I do think that Kate took advantage of a moment in which she wasn't thinking. She was just scared.
And it's possible. But I don't know. It's possible. But it was interesting that he met her at the grave, and he sat there and he told her, "Yes, I have information. I'm not going to tell you." And then he turned around and told her. This was really... I talk about often over on my blog on Tumblr about Red pulling strings. He treats people like chess pieces. He treats people like marionettes on the end of strings. He puts everyone where he wants them, and he tugs on their strings to make sure they go where he needs them. And with Liz, he puts people into her life. He takes them away. He adjusts things the way he needs it to. She's very difficult to maneuver, and I think he realizes that. And then you have Tom joining in, and poor Red's just throwing his hands up in frustration at some point, because the Keens are incredibly difficult to maneuver when they're together. But with Liz on this, he tells her, "I'm not telling you," and then turns around and gives her a little bit, but apparently tells her, "I don't want the FBI involved in this." He had to have known she was going to go straight to Cooper and get in the middle of things.
I think he miscalculated.
I think he did?
Miscalculated. Yes, I think he thought that maybe they would listen. I think that decision, that moment, caught my attention about Red. I think that Red instinct was not to tell her anything, and I think that, believe it or not, to me, that's a pivotal moment for Red. Red went against his instinct and told Liz what he knew, and that to me was a sign of respect. It brought to mind that song, "For Someone You Love," mm-hmm. Because Red was as close to he will ever be to being on his knees and telling her that he was sorry. I think that is as close to an apology Red will ever get.
An apology for withholding information, or what?
Yes.
See, I didn't get that. I think that it may have weighed on him that he realized what he was doing. He was withholding information because he does care about Liz. He does love her, and I'm going to disagree with many people in the fandom on how he loves her, but I think we can all agree that he does love her on a level. And, you know, to see her in that kind of pain over her child, I think personally, from what I saw in the episode, that's what did it, is that, you know, well, fine, I'll give you this. But
I think he was paying attention at the end to what Kaplan was telling him.
And maybe
you have to let her go. I don't mean let her go and, you know, be on your own. I think that let go was like, let go, allow her to be an adult.
Yeah. And that is a learning curve. He really does remind me of a father that has been absent as a daughter has grown up and then re-meets her as an adult daughter and then tries to treat her like, you know, like a small child again. And that is, for a long time, Red has really struck me that way. That he just doesn't realize she's an adult. It does not, like, I mean, he realizes, obviously, he's an intelligent human being. obviously on a
But not
logical
on an
level.
emotional level.
Exactly. But it was interesting that he did that, and then he went into well, I told her not to bring you guys into this, and then he turned around and brought Tom in as his man. Which, once again, if you need something done, you bring in Tom Keene. And I love that. Is it feeding time? I mean,
Yeah.
so they're obviously being kept there. There's someone standing guard outside. And it makes me wonder if they slipped out when they went to the FBI headquarters. Did they sneak out, or is that how they're leaving, or do they have an armed escort everywhere they go?
They probably have an armed escort. It didn't give me an impression that he was being facetious. He was just doing snark and. But that scene to me, it's we get two pivotal scenes for Red, in my opinion, which is one, the scene with Liz at the grave. The second, when he's going to meet Johan, and he tells him, I could find a man for you, but and you know that in the moment that he says that, exactly who he's going to bring.
I mean, it makes sense from what you've seen and everything. I mean,
and have you noticed how we have not seen Red say, "How could you do that?" There was a little scene on the plane where Tom says, "I don't regret trying to get away from you," and that was it. But we never see Red, other than regret is something that requires wisdom or age. Other than that, there has been absolutely no confrontation of Tom, no pointing fingers at Tom.
And I think that's probably what Brian meant. He made a comment in an interview recently. He said that Red and Tom have kind of put aside their animosity to a great degree this season. And I read that very much as they were going to... I got my hopes up a little high because I love both of the characters. And so I very much would like to see a Dom and Red sort of relationship between Red and Tom. And I'm sure that over the years it would get there, but I for some reason my brain went, season 4 is that time, and no, it's not. But
it was remarkable, though. I mean,
you're right. I mean, he has not been quite as irritable towards Tom as he usually is, or as he has been in the past, I suppose is a better way of putting it.
Not only that, did you notice that he gave them that little quite funny smile that Red does when he's asking somebody to do something impossible? Like, this is what we're going to do.
Oh, I mean, he threw Tom in a super dangerous situation. And there was a comment he made. He said, when, what was the friend's name? The, Johan, what was his last name?
Oh, I don't remember that.
It started with an H. I can't recall. But he said, that if he realized anything was off, that he would dispose of him. And Tom's he's looking down, he goes, "Yep, I know the drill." It's like, Red was making it very clear how dangerous the situation was, which was interesting. I would just like to, and I know we're doing Red with the Keens right now, but an interesting bit that I noticed. I have said for a long time that I feel like the terrified FBI husband that Tom played in season 1 was not very much of an act, that he really probably had some very panicked moments when he realized that his wife was in danger, and without breaking cover, he could do nothing about it. And I think that Liz got a bit of a taste of that in this episode, in which she was stuck in the post office. She couldn't reach him. And she started panicking a little bit there when they couldn't reach him. They knew that the CDC was transporting everything. And she started yelling into the comm, "Tom, can you hear me? Tom, if you can hear me, say something." And I think she got a bit of a view into what Tom felt like when he was just the elementary school teacher, playing that part of just the elementary school teacher stuck on the sidelines. And thankfully he doesn't have to do that anymore. And I think that's great for them as a couple. But it was very interesting watching those roles be reversed.
Mm-hmm. Very much a mirror.
Yes, exactly. We're back to your mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
But you never saw Red worried that Tom wasn't going to succeed.
No, he just gave me that. That's yours. Gave him that little smile. You know, he's a smile like, well, this is what we're gonna do. He always does, and that to me, it's a depart. That smile is a departure. That is a new chapter with Tom, because notice that in that moment when he needed something done, he did it correctly. There was no room for error again, and the man is Tom. And I think that may be it's a whole new view into Tom Keene.
It'll be, as we talked about last week, he really does seem to treat him more in a familial sort of the son-in-law now. The begrudging son-in-law, of course, still.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think if Red had his way, Tom would pack his bags and never come back. But part of it may be that he just finally has come to terms with the fact that Liz has made her decision. And the other part may be that with Agnes, that he's not going to take a child's father away. And he's not going to even encourage the child's father to leave. That, I think Red truly does care about Agnes, and he wants to see her grow up in the best way possible. And if she can have two loving parents with her, he's all for it. And so it's really funny. I actually saw it come across Tumblr today because I had thought about it. And I have this horrible, deep fear. And I don't think Red would actually do this, but it's one of those haunting bits that, it goes into your mind and you can't quite shake it. That he keeps trying to push the Keens out of the search. So what's going to happen if he were to find Agnes, if the Keens were not going to be involved with finding her, and he goes in, he finds Agnes, he and his people are the ones that find her, they are not involved, they are not there, what happens to Agnes at that point? Does he ship her off like Liz, or does he hand her back to her parents?
I think he hands her to her parents. I think he gave Liz a very clear answer about that, and the audience as well, because he said to her, I can tell you what your life is without a child, not much. And he also said, looking back, I should have raised you myself. So you got your answer right there. It doesn't matter how dangerous things look, how desperate things look. The best answer would have been to keep you with me.
I'm just trying to picture Reddington, the kind of man that he is, being the in-control individual that he is, which his life requires him to be able to do what he does. He has to be in control or he'll be dead. If he were to lose control of,
anything,
of part of his job that he does, being the concierge of crime, I mean, he would have been dead years ago if he didn't have complete control over everything he did. And so, I mean, it's understandable that he is the control freak that he is. When I call him a control freak, I never want people to mistake that as me begrudging him for that. It is required in his line of work. Tom's a bit of a control freak on some things.
If you're a strategizer, that means, by extension, you are a control freak. You can't strategize if you don't control or predict.
And I just have a lot of trouble with a man like that, picturing him going through, doing everything, finding the child, shutting her parents out of it, and then turning around and handing her to them when they may make the decision to turn around and shut him out of her life and leave.
I think he would. I don't think, I never seen Red doing, shutting them out of spite. I think he's shutting them out of expediency.
Okay. That's the kind of thing I want to hear, because I don't want to ever think that Red would do that.
I mean, I'm not discounting that under certain circumstances he would, but the circumstances aren't there yet. I think that I always said that the Blacklist is a family story, it's a family love story. And I think it's going to be a very dysfunctional story. The family is pretty dysfunctional itself. But I don't think that this is all about love.
What was it that Tom said at the christening? We're a dysfunctional family,
Oh,
albeit a family that tries to kill each other every now and then.
yes, and I think that those are another mirror moments. You're gonna see a lot of them. Um, it's all very interesting to me. Um, what else are we going to
The
talk about?
parallels. Let's do
Yes,
parallels, and then we'll do themes.
yes,
Now, for the sake of this parallel, I mean, we talked about the fact that it's possible that Katarina and Red, that's another smoke and mirrors issue. But for the sake of the parallel, from everything it looks like is being
we'll do
said,
it as it seems.
yes. um, what it seems to be, and what Liz, let's do it from what Liz believes is probably the best way to approach it.
Yes,
Liz believes when she reads the journal, and I put it up on the Facebook page and was talking about on Tumblr about it today. And it seems like the general consensus was Liz was not reading in Russian; she was using a translation program
yes,
on her
I think
computer.
it's shown. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's shown.
it is. It is. I just, when I first posted it up there, I did not, for some reason, my brain did not connect that. And everybody told me exactly what I needed to know. So great. Kudos, everybody. Thank you for cluing Jen in because I miss a lot. And so even 15 times through an episode, I'm still finding new things. But you find out, or Liz believes at the moment, that Katarina Rostova, her mother, was married to Konstantin Rostov, her father, was assigned to seduce Raymond Reddington, an American in the Navy, you would assume, assigned to seduce him and fell in love with him. Which, you see very clearly in that scene, she equates with the situation with she and Tom. Which makes sense, even if Tom was not put in her life to seduce her necessarily. It just happened. I think
Well,
she may have seduced him a
he
bit
said
more.
assigned,
Yeah.
not seduced.
Well, I mean, Katarina was the one that said that she seduced the American.
Which makes sense. She had been
Yeah.
described by the Orea agent as the Pinko Matahari, and that's exactly what Matahari did: seduce men for information.
And so I loved that scene so much, and you're gonna have the shipper in me come out in this little
Go
scene.
ahead. Away.
Tessa's like, all
I'll
right, here we go.
theorize later.
No, but I mean, it was so beautiful because you have him waking up and asking if she's okay, and then you have her walking over. In season 1, you had so many instances where when it was something that bothered her, that terrified her, she just shut him out. The adoption. Until the very last second, when she had to tell him, I can't do this, she refused to speak to him about it. They had that conversation in their kitchen saying, but we don't talk about it. You still want to do this? Because we don't talk about it. And that's what Liz used to do. And so to see her opening up to him shows how far they really have grown and how much the truth between them really has cemented their relationship well and in a much, much healthier fashion.
May I also interspeed here that not only is the truth between them, it's also the truth about them. They, by knowing who they are, by knowing more of their history, they're also more able to have less walls around them.
And the fact that she's willing to share that with him is so amazing. Because she does tend to internalize a lot of things. She tries to approach things by herself, beat down those walls by herself, and she's going at it with him, which is fantastic. But she just, I mean, it looks like, I don't know if she's crouched down next to the bed or if she just sprawls out on top of him, but she lays down on his chest and is talking to him about this, and that moment of, I've lost Agnes, I can't lose you too. It was so interesting to watch this idea of her being willing to vocalize that. It was very beautiful. But I'm getting a little bit off topic of the parallel. Sorry, I told you, shipper heart is takes over.
It's an interesting parallel to the relationship of Red and Katrina.
And it also could explain a great deal about why Red distrusts Tom so much.
Indeed.
If that happened to Red, in which he fell in love with Katarina, Katarina said, I've been spying on you. Because at some point after Masha was born, she had to have told him what was going on. He had to have basically been okay with it. And I could see Red going, okay, but you love me, right? You fell in love with me, great, and being young and being idealistic. And she may have, but she wasn't willing to leave her husband for him. And I think that, if that's what happened, if that's the gist of what happened, I think that broke his heart. And I think he was afraid for a long while that Tom was going to do the exact same thing. And I think that's why he put so much fear into her and instilled so much animosity towards him, because he really did. He made her believe her husband was going to hurt her. That if he found, that there was going to be a day that he, like the nightmare she had, turn around and try to choke the life out of her if he had half a chance. That is something that Red really encouraged her into believing. And I think that a lot of that was, if this is true, was his history with Katarina. I mean, maybe not physically that they, who knows, they may have gone at it physically, Mr. and Mrs. Smith style. But when she chose her husband over him after everything, I could see where that would just break his heart. He doesn't want to see Liz go through that.
If I may get a quote in here, it's when he's in the motel with Liz and Tom is there and Red comes in, he tells her, I understand what it's like to be drawn to something that is unhealthy, to a part of yourself that you're afraid of. But I want you to remember what your life really was with him and imagine all it could be without him.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that Red is seeing, whenever he looked, I don't know so much if it is anymore, but during that time period, every time he looked at Tom and Liz, every time he looked at Tom, he saw Katarina.
Yes. And he saw Liz with her heart broken, Liz in danger, their child in danger. It was rehashing everything. And I think it got even worse when Liz got pregnant. That was for him, because once I saw, that, and after probably was the VAM, it was like mildly crazy Red, if not half crazy Red.
Oh, well, that moment they were standing out in the woods when Dembe finally stopped him. And he said, enough, Raymond. And, I mean...
But he's been going over, like, everything. He was drinking. He was drinking all that episode. He was going insane. He was really going over the top. And I think that's exactly what it was. The pregnancy brought everything back to him.
Oh, I think so. I think instead of seeing Liz and Tom, he was reliving it. He was seeing Katarina and Liz. The Katarina that he loved, he was seeing in Liz. And the Katarina that betrayed him, he was seeing in Tom. And I think that and I'm not... Here's an interesting question for you. When do you think that shifted for him? That he stopped, because he's not treating Tom in that way anymore. When do you think it shifted that he started making
with
that
Tom?
Yeah, with Tom, that he started making that Tom is not Katarina?
When Tom stayed, when Tom did whatever it needs to be done to get Kirk, and I think reluctantly, when Tom chose to live with Liz. I think that is a part. I don't think that Red has got there yet to realize it, but there was a big thing. First, finding out who Tom really was. He wasn't an operative. He was a friend. He was a friend's son, and I think they gotta change something. And then
a bit like Wrestler with humanizing him. As Wrestler's learning more about him, it's humanizing him and learning that he's Christopher Hargrave, which would be Howard's son. That makes him. It concretes some things for him.
I also wonder if Red learned a lot of things about his life as Jacob Phelps, what happened, or if he does know, I wouldn't discount that Red knows exactly what happened to him.
Right.
And I think that the whole thing. And I think reluctantly, the fact that and Liz decided to go change things for him, because that's something that Katarina didn't do.
Yeah. She would not leave with him. She would not, because he asked her to run with him, and she wouldn't. Tom
According to
and
the
Liz,
journal, yes.
well, yeah, according to the journal, and that's all we have to go off of right now.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, the journal, what it's saying is canon, as far as we know.
Mm-hmm.
Coming at it from Liz's
And that and that's a departure, because Tom and Liz are not acting like Katerina and him. Tom and Liz are putting the life of their child in front of everything, and their love for each other in front of everything.
And I've been saying for a while that I really do believe that Tom and Liz, and this is kind of into your themes bit, but we'll come back to the themes, but I think that Tom and Liz are the point of them is to break the mold. One of their many points in this storyline is to break the mold of their families. That, you've got, both of them were kidnapped as children. Agnes has been kidnapped. I think they're about to get her back. You have identity issues. I think that they are going to choose at the end of it, as of what I am seeing right now and everything that I've seen happen up until this
Interesting.
point, I think by the end of it, they are going to have a choice. Are we Masha and Christopher, or are we Liz and Tom? Are we the Keens, or are we a product of our past and our parents, and do we have to be what our blood tells us we are? Or are we going to choose our own future? And I think they're going to break the mold. I think they're going to choose their own future. I think it'll be good that they know. I think that will help them in a way. But I also think that they will choose to remain Liz and Tom Keen. And that will be where they break away from the cycle that their parents had. And they won't become their parents. And I think that they'll struggle with that, and that's going to be part of redemption, and that'll be part of possibly 4B, in which they're struggling. Do we have to become our parents? Is that going to be something that's thrust upon us? Does Agnes have to become us and then follow in our footsteps and have to live this life? Or do we get to make our own choices about our own future? And I think in the end, they'll get to make that choice. And that's going back to identity.
I don't know that they will have that choice. I don't know that choice is realistic.
For me, I see it as the idea of identity being such a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going, personally, as I see it right now, I think they're going to be able to choose that identity.
See, I differ there. I'm not sure that is an actual choice. I think that a lot of that, this is my view simply, is that in the Blacklist, identity is one thing, but there is other themes, and I think one of the themes is also the family. And I think that accepting yourself and your family at the end is what gives you your identity.
I don't think it means necessarily that they have to deny everything in their past.
But they can't have both. The kind of people that they are, the kind of people they were born into, it's not the kind of things that you can just, choose to be different. This have long roots.
Maybe so. I guess we'll see as it pans out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it might be entirely wrong. I might be thoroughly off, but I think that what their stories are going to go even deeper. I think that we have not seen that, and I think that now the entire cast is going to move into another level of identity. We've explored identity with basically the entire cast. Now we're going to go deeper into what it means. My opinion.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes sense. And identity is such a huge theme in this. I mean, I know that I've heard Ryan talk about it multiple times.
It's huge.
It's obvious. It's glaringly obvious in the entire show that identity is just forefront. Do we want to go, because we had one more parallel, do we want to go into that, or do we want to do themes and we can kind of stick the other parallel back in there?
Yeah, we can do themes as we talk, because a lot of these themes really go into the scenes, the parallels,
right.
the relationship.
And so the other parallel that I had was the team, what I love to call the Team Keen moment. And this first popped up for me. The first time I noticed it was in season 2 when Liz ended up on his boat and he walks in and goes, "I've been looking everywhere for you. They're trashing your place. Where have you been? They're after you, et cetera, et cetera." And she says, "I need your help. I've got a lead, but I need your help." And he says, "I can't stay." And she basically talks him, well, I mean, she doesn't really have to work very hard to talk him into. All she has to do is ask again, and he's there. But they go in, and they go after and drop off? Am I saying that correctly? And drop off. And they go after him, and they move so seamlessly together through that apartment. It just
and the club in the Russian club. When they're in the Russian club and he's in the bathroom with the other two guys.
They do, but that's not quite as. I don't see that quite as much of a parallel. Yes, they work well together, but he goes in, he does the thing, and she comes in and makes sure he doesn't get his butt kicked all over the place because it's like 2 or 3 on 1. But there's just something about the way they moved in that episode through the apartment and then getting the information, the car chase, protecting each other when they were in the shootout. And we just saw the next level of that, really, in Thursday's episode. And to be fair, and to be honest about this, I missed it when he first snagged that key card. And I missed the fact that he snagged it.
I thoroughly missed it. I was so taken.
Did you? Okay, at least I'm not alone.
Oh, no. I was like, oh my God, Liz is really losing it. And then as soon as she got out of the room, I'm thinking, this is a little weird. What they're up to. And then as soon as she went in there, it's like, oh, okay, I know what they're doing.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't feel quite as bad because I caught on a little earlier than that. But no, I'm sitting there and I'm going, they're both just at their wits' end already. Are they okay? How are they not taking control of this more? You've got Tom shouting, Liz crying, and I'm going, while I'm not judging them on this, it still is very odd. And then suddenly he's coming over and you see that key card in his hand and he slips it into hers and I'm going, I love you people. This is why I ship you.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was a great scene.
Oh, so beautiful. And her walking out and the phone call, just the entire scene was so fantastic. And
you thought about Kate May.
Thought about what? Kate May. Yes.
May. Kate May was right there.
It really was. It's a great parallel between the way that Katarina and Red so seamlessly worked together. And granted, that was a opium-induced hallucination, but you have to imagine that that's how they worked together.
I think that was a mix between memories and imagination, and I think he was just piecing together things. But I do think that working together is something they did a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Or else why would it be there? That was something familiar to him. And so it was, I loved that scene so much with them moving together. And it just...
Yeah, like Katarina, you get the car, I clean up.
Yeah, exactly. And then, here, babe, here's the key card you needed, Mm-hmm. And it was brilliant. It was well done by the actors. It was well played as the scene. And I hope that we continue to have those moments moving forward.
Yeah, that was stunning. I loved it. I love that.
And so did you have any other either parallels or themes that you wanted to talk about specifically?
Well, I noticed that we are moving away from the water themes, and I think that one of the things that I wanted to point out, the plaid shirt, we got the plaid shirt. Katerina Rostova already mentions in the journal that Konstantin was receiving transfusions back then when Liz was 4 years old. Now that disease haven't killed him yet. How has he managed that? Because they say they kill everybody.
I imagine through the blood transfusions. I mean, you're looking at modern medicine. I mean, he's in his 50s,
Yes,
60s. And
yeah,
so maybe
50.
late 50s, early 60s, somewhere in
No,
there.
no, no. He's probably within a year or two of Red.
Yeah. And so late 50s, mid to late 50s. And so you've got modern medicine that his father wouldn't have had access to during that point, you know. And so, I mean, just, it would have, by leaps and bounds, gotten better since the generation before him. And I'm sure that certain procedures have just extended his life. And he's probably hitting the end of that. And so that's why he's working towards alternatives at this point. And I will be very interested to see if it is quite as straightforward as Red was saying. You know, he just wants you for your blood, basically. And I don't really
No, I
think it
think
will be.
it's a transplant because for that kind of anemia, I did a little bit of research, and there is either the transfusion, which obviously are not working anymore, or there is a bone marrow transplant.
Uh-huh.
So
Which
that's what he
I
needs.
cannot imagine a newborn child being able to give him enough that would work. I really can't. I don't know how
Basically,
that's supposed to work.
it's basically killing Agnes.
Yeah. And so I think we'll find out next episode if he's, well, I mean, we may or may not. If they end up getting her back next episode, we may or may not find out what Kirk would have done. I mean,
I think we're gonna get her in the nick of time.
yeah. I mean, we may not
Like when they're
know for
prepping her
sure.
for the surgery, or when they're prepping him for the surgery. I don't think that I do think that there is a little bit of emotion in Rostov, but I think that fundamentally, as Liz said, what happened in your life to make you this sociopath?
But I don't know. I am not convinced yet that he would sacrifice his granddaughter's life. Because when someone was talking about today, I don't remember who, so hat tip to whoever mentioned this, but someone was talking about today that when Agnes was brought to Liz had her back to Kirk, and she was holding Agnes, and there was this look on Kirk's face, and this was in last week's episode, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that sort of adoration there. It's not an act that he's putting on for anybody because nobody's looking at him that matters.
Yes, but it's an adoration towards a child. It's adoration towards, boy, am I going to get better here.
I don't know. I got the impression it was an emotional connection to his family. And I think that he's probably torn on that. I think he's a bad enough man that he will consider it. You know, he loves being alive enough that he will consider it. But I almost wonder if we'll get to the point maybe he'll pass out and the doctors will be getting ready for it without having a confirmation that's exactly what he wants to do. And that's when they'll swoop in and save Agnes. But I don't know. I don't know if we'll get... I don't know if even Kirk knows if he'll be willing to do it. I don't know. I don't have a great read on Kirk yet.
What they do? What do you think Kirk will do if he does a test to assess whether is a compatible donor and finds out that she's not?
If she's not, I have no idea. I mean, probably go after Liz.
Which means Liz is not his daughter.
Well, I mean, I think he's already done that test. I think that was his point. But it's, like I said, it's interesting that Red has said again and again, well, at least once, maybe not again and again, but he said at least once that...
A couple times.
Was it a couple times?
Yeah.
So that, the man that believes that you are his daughter, the man that believes himself to be your father. It doesn't sound like Red believes, which makes me go back to leaning back towards wondering if Red thinks he's her, her father.
I think Red knows. My personal crazy theory, I think Red knows he's not the father, and Kirk is not the father.
Well, then Katarina gets around.
She was described as a Pinko Matahari.
Maybe she did just get around. Who knows?
And all we know is there was an American. She has never said, I love Reddington. Never.
That's
Liz
true.
thinks that, but what we have seen, what we have read from the words when we get the image of Katarina, she has never said it's Reddington. We assume it is Reddington, but is it?
But they do love to lead down those paths, and then
Yeah, they do. That's why we love it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this.
exactly. If it was all that obvious, it would be boring.
I mean, otherwise, what it would be, just a soap opera in the past.
Oh,
But I think it's a little deeper than that.
let's not go soap opera. This is
No, we're
not
not.
a soap opera.
No, well, the difference is time. Yeah,
Oh,
30
okay.
years in the past, things are very different. What do you think is going to happen to Kaplan? Just to a quick recap on what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know because I thought when I saw the pictures for this week, I just assumed that was going to be Dembele saving her, and then it wasn't. And so I have heard so many theories from she's going to come back and be an epic villain to she's going to sacrifice herself to prove herself to Red. And I honestly have no idea. I don't have any predictions for Kate. I'm glad she's alive, but I don't think that negates Red's responsibility because he meant to kill her. And so this whole, well, he didn't actually kill her. Well, that's nice. He still pulled the trigger and aimed at her, you know?
I think it is. I think, in my opinion, Liz is going to, once they get Agnes, or they're close to getting Agnes, Liz is going to say, "Where is Kaplan?" I think that somehow they're going to know that she survived, and Liz is going to say, "You know what? You ever want to see me again? You better go get Kaplan back."
There are photos from next week's episode, Gaia, that it looks like they're going back into the woods there. And so, and it's Red, Dembele, and Liz. And so I'm wondering if she does push it, you know, and says, if you killed her, we're at least going to go bury this poor woman, you know? And we're not going to leave her to the animals out there. And then they get there and she's
They
gone.
have no shovel, so they know already she's alive. It's like they're going to get her. I think that that's how things are going to end up. That Red is going to end up saving Kaplan.
And it could be. I mean, I do not know. I don't have a great many predictions about that one. And so I'm glad she's alive. I love Kate. I hope they keep Kate. I think she's really made a way into most of the fandom's heart. And so,
especially once Liz realizes the role Kaplan played in her childhood as she recovers more memories. I think that's gonna get her very sore at Red.
Oh, if she remembers her from that. I don't remember where I came across this, but it might have been on Blacklist Exposed, they were talking about it. That you see that picture, the picture that Red has in his apartment that Kirk also had, that we just assumed that was Katarina, the blonde.
Yes.
That you get the same sort of sun shining behind Kaplan when she gets shot that you have in that photo that blurs the woman's face out. That may not be Katarina. If Kate was there when in her, you know, in Liz's...
No, but Red said the woman is the girl is you and the woman is your mother.
Oh, okay. Did he say that? I
yes,
remember
he
that.
did say that.
All
yeah.
right. Well, then there goes that theory. I don't remember exactly where I heard that, but it was still an interesting theory.
Oh, well, because you don't have to take things literally in the Blacklist. What you got to take out from, in my opinion, what you got to take out from there is they're drawing a parallel between Katarina and Kate.
Yeah.
Not necessarily mean Katarina is Kate or Kate is Katarina or the photo is Katarina, but there is something about that photo and about Kate and that death, or was supposed to be a death, that we should be connecting.
Yeah. And apparently someone made the connection, so kudos.
Good for them.
Yep.
I didn't catch that one.
Applaud. But yeah, and we still have to find out about Annie. I feel like everybody wants to know about Annie. You drop a name on the Blacklist, and it's those little things that they drop, those threads that you never... And a lot of times they come back to things.
Well, but sometimes it was something. Annie's body was in front of Kaplan, right? when would you have the body of somebody in front of you?
Well, she said that she was laying there with her head split open. I would assume
Yep.
they were attacked.
Yes, but why in front of her?
And he was trying to protect her.
Could be. But the other thing is, Annie was a child, and she was carrying Annie.
Could be. But the thing is that she does wear a wedding ring. And so, and we do have confirmation that she's at least bi. I mean, the assumption is that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all we've heard is that she slept with another woman. But I mean, she's at least bi.
Yeah, but
And
she
so it
could
could
have
have
had
been
a
a
child.
wife.
Could have been a child.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's certainly an intriguing link. I think you're right. We're going to see more of it.
I hope that they come back to it because I don't think they're ever going to come back to that conversation between Tom and Gina where she says that she should have, what was the line? That she
I should have said yes in Budapest.
Yes, it drives me insane because I'm like, what did you say no to?
It wasn't to marry her because
No.
there were no emotional things about them.
No.
I think it was to leave. I think they wanted to leave.
No, because apparently Tom was asking for her to do something because she's the one that did not say yes. And Tom says to her in that episode, I never thought that I'd want out, but I do. And so it can't be to leave. So I
Maybe
don't
to
know.
strike out on their own.
Maybe that's I don't know. It drives me insane because I don't know. I do not know. All right. Well, that about lands us at the end of this episode. Kept it a bit shorter than last time, and hopefully kept it a little more on topic this time. We're working on it. It's a learning curve, and we're enjoying every second of it. And so we hope that we will see you next time. Give us a shout on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr. We've got the episodes up on YouTube and SoundCloud and iTunes. You can rate us there and you can leave comments. If you've enjoyed these, please feel free to. And constructive criticism is fantastic.
And also, if you have any questions or any topics or anything that you would like us to cover, please feel free to leave us a request for, when we go off topic a couple of times, we can always go off topic on something that you want to hear about.
Yes, at least it'll be something you want to hear and not just us rambling. All right, great. Well, we are really appreciative of you guys listening, and we hope you've enjoyed it. Very excited for next week's episode because the Blacklist just has us sitting on the edge of our seats this season. Well done, Blacklist.
Yes, indeed.
All right. You guys have a great week.